In this video, we will be building voice and video call application. When user clicks on the voice or video call button without entering the college user ID, they will receive an alert message. Let's input the college user ID and initiate a voice call. Both the caller and the callee have the ability to cancel the call invitation. Once the invitation is accepted, users can toggle their audio and video, share their screens, and send text messages. Let's start by creating a React project using Vite. Open your VS Code and in your terminal type npm create Vite. I have already opened my VS Code inside a folder, so I'll put period at the end. Press enter. Select React. Select JavaScript plus SWC. Now install the dependencies with npm install. Open index.css. Remove this. Remove this too. Open app.jsx. Remove all of this. Remove this import. Remove this. Let's run our app. First, let's create header and footer component. For that, inside source folder, create a folder named components. Inside components, create a file name header.jsx. Similarly, create a file name footer.jsx. Now let's import header and footer in our main.jsx. Add header and footer. Place footer after app. Let's put our app component inside main. Open index.css. Let's add some styles. Padding will be 0. Margin 0. Box sizing border box. For now, let's add some style to our body tag. Max width will be 1280 pixel. Padding will be 20 pixel. Minimum height will be 100 VH. Display will be flex. Flex direction column. Gap will be 20 pixel. For main tag, flex will be 1. Now let's create header and footer. Let's start with header. Let's give some height to the header. Height will be 50 pixel. Similarly, let's give height for the footer. Let's use root instead of body. Let's see our app. The main section takes the remaining height. Let's use Google Fonts. We will use this font. Click on get font. Get embedded code. Copy this. Open index.html. Paste it here. Let's change title of our app. Copy this. Open index.css. In root, add the copied style. Let's see our app. Font is changed. I don't want to waste your time typing the HTML and CSS. So I'll add the header and footer. Now I'll paste some styles. Close this file. Let's close all of our files. Open header. Now I'll paste some HTML in our header component. Similarly for footer component. I have added app logo in public directory. Let's see our app. This is our app right now. Now let's create the main component. We will display the username and the user ID. We will provide an input where the user can enter his user ID. Then we'll add two buttons, one for voice call and another for video call. Let's create a container div. Display the username and the user ID. Let's add the input field. Placeholder will be his user ID. Let's set spelling check to false. Let's add label for our input. Enter his user ID. Now let's create buttons. Voice call, video call. Let's see our app. Refresh the page. This is our app right now. Class name is container. Let's see our app. We will be using ZEGOCLOUD UIKits to implement voice call in our app. Search ZEGOCLOUD UIKits on Google. Click on the first link that appears. With the help of pre-built UIKits and UI components, we can easily create engaging applications. ZEGOCLOUD's UIKits are open source and cross-platform, offering over 20 plus UIKits and 50 plus components that are ready to use. Here is an example of how to implement video calling. With just few lines of code, we can easily integrate this feature. We'll be implementing one-on-one voice call and video call in our app. They provide wide range of UI kits. You can explore other UI kits here. Plus, when you sign up, you will receive 10,000 minutes for free. Let's get started by signing up. Let's fill this form. Enter first name and last name. Select country. Enter your email address. After you have added your email, click on Get Code. You have to tick this. Click on Get Code. Solve it. Copy your verification code. Paste it here. Create your password. Click this button. Fill this form. Click on Continue. Go to Dashboard. Now let's create a project. Click on this plus icon. We'll be using voice and video call. So select this. Click on Next. Let's give the project name. We will be using UIKits. So click on Start with UIKits. Project is being created. Click on For Web. We can toggle on and off this functionality according to our requirement. For now, let's go with the default options. Click on Save and Start to integrate. Click on Get the config file and integrate. Copy the app ID and server secret. We will need it later in our app. Click on Go to Admin Console. Our project is created. Click on it. Click on View Guide. ZEGOCLOUD provides comprehensive documentation. So the implementation of CallKit is very straightforward. Now we'll generate random string for username and user ID. In your app, you can use the real username and the ID of the user who is currently logged in. I want to keep this simple, so I'll be generating random string username. We can use ZEGOCLOUD documentation to generate the string. Copy and paste this function in our app. Paste it at the top. With the help of this function, we can generate random string. We can provide the length of string that we want as argument, and this function will return the random string. If the length of string is not passed while calling the function, by default it is 5. Now let's generate the random username. const username. Let's invoke the random ID function. Console log username. Let's see in our app. Refresh the page. This is the random string generated by random ID function. Let's create set to store the username and the user ID. Const user info, set user info. Object of username and user ID. Will populate the value of username and user ID with the random string returned by random ID. Let's do that inside use effect. On first render, const user ID. Let's invoke random ID function. And the username will be user underscore user ID. Let's set this user ID and username in our user info state. Set user info. Username, user ID. Let's console log it. Let's see it in our app. You can remove this. Refresh the page. Import use effect. Refresh the page. User ID is not defined. This should be user ID with small d. Refresh the page. This is the random string generated by random ID function, and this is the username. Now let's display username and user ID in our UI. User info dot username, user info dot user ID. Let's remove this. Refresh the page. So this is the user name and this is the user ID. Now let's take the input from our input. For that, let's create another set variable. Let's call it callee ID, set callee ID, use state, initial state will be empty string, add onChange event in the input, onChange, set callee ID, event dot target dot value, pass e in the callback function. Just console log the callee ID. We are getting the callee ID. This example is for group call. We'll be implementing one-on-one call. Also, we'll be using call invitation. So click on quick start here. Let's install the pre-built UI kit from ZEGOCLOUD. Copy this. Open your terminal. Paste it. Let's copy this and paste it in our app. We have to pass the user ID, username, app ID, and server secret to generate token. We have to pass this in generate kit token for test. Copy this. Paste it inside use effect. We have already created the user ID and username and stored it in user info. So we don't need this. From the ZEGOCLOUD dashboard, copy the app ID and the server secret. Let's keep the app ID and the server secret in env file. In the root, create a file name .env. We should start with bit underscore, the variable name that we want. Let's call it app ID. Enter your ZEGOCLOUD app ID here. I'll enter mine later. Similarly, for server secret, let's import this value in app.jsx. To import the value from env file, we have to use import.meta.env.our variable name. For now, I'll add some random app ID and server secret. Similarly, for server secret, let's console log app ID and server secret. I'll comment this for now. Remove this. Refresh the page. We are getting our app ID and server secret. Let's remove this console log, uncomment it. Now let's generate our token. We have app ID, server secret. We have to pass user ID and username. So we can get the user ID from user info. Will be user info dot user ID. Similarly for username, user info dot username. Let's console log the token. App ID must be number. Let's use parse int to convert this string to number. Refresh the page. User ID is required. We are generating the user ID here. And then we are setting the user ID with the help of set user info. However, set state are asynchronous in nature, so the changes are not reflected immediately. That's why we are getting undefined here. Let's use the user ID instead of this. And username here. Let's see it in our app. Refresh the page. We have generated the token successfully. Let's remove this console log. Go to the documentation. We have to pass the generated token in the create method. Copy this, paste it here. Here we are creating an instance of Zego UIKit. After creating the instance, we are adding the plugin ZIM to this instance. Now let's handle the video call and the voice call functionality. When the user clicks on this button, let's invoke handle call function. On click, handle call. Let's pass the type of the invitation call as an argument of this handle call function. Zego UIKit prebuild dot invitation type video call. Similarly, let's set this up for the audio call. Copy this, paste it here. Invitation type voice call. Now let's create this handle call function. Function handle call type. Let's assign the callee ID in callee variable. Callee ID. We are storing the callee ID in callee ID set. If there is no callee, then we will alert user ID cannot be empty and return. Let's try it out. Right now, if I don't pass anything and click either of this button, I should get an alert message. I'm getting the alert message. Now, if there is callee ID, then we'll send the call invitation to the callee. For that, we can use the Zego instance that we created earlier. Let's create this inside a function. Let's create a function name init. Let's move this inside init. In use effect, we'll invoke this init function. Now let's move all of this logic inside handle call. Remove this console log. We don't have user ID and the username in this handle call function. We can get the user ID and username from our state. This will be user info dot user ID, and this will be user info dot username. Whenever the component mounts, we are invoking the init function. Inside init function, we are invoking the random ID function to generate random text and storing it in user ID. Then we are creating the username. Then we are storing the user ID and username in the user info state. Now, when the user clicks on the button, either voice call or video call, we are invoking the handle call function. And inside this handle call function, we are getting the app ID and the server secret from our env file. Then we are creating the token. After the token is created, we are creating the Zego UIKit instance. Then we are adding the plugin ZIM in this instance. Then we are checking if the callee ID is entered by user or not. If the callee ID is not present, we are alerting the user with this message. Now, if the callee ID is present, we have to send the invitation. For that, we can use the send call invitation method. In the Zego instance, jp dot send call invitation. It will accept object of callee user ID is callee, username is user info dot username. Call type is call type. If the key and value is same, we can just write the call type. Let's set the timeout to 60 seconds. If the user does not pick in this time interval, the invitation will be cancelled. This is an async operation. So, and then call back, we'll get the response. Let's console log the response. If response.error invite is length, we will alert the user does not exist or is offline. If there is error, we'll catch the error. And console log it. Let's use console.error. Let's try it out. I'll open the app in another browser. If I click on this post call without adding the callee's ID, I'll get the alert message. Similarly, if I click on video call, I'll get the alert message. Let's send call invitation to this user. Click on voice call. This user can decline the call invitation. Let's do video call. Both the users are connected. They can toggle their microphone. They can share their screen. As you can see, this user is sharing their screen and the shared screen is visible to the another user. Stop sharing. Let's send text message. Let's end the call.